All right. Good evening, everybody. Thanks for joining our Scouting for Pheasants Masterclass. My name's Jack Headland. I'm just going to go through a little bit of housekeeping here while we let everybody get logged in and get situated. So, couple things. Your audio and video are turned off, so no worries if you have noise in the background. We can't see or hear you. This class is being recorded, so if you have to drop early or you want to go back and rewatch a portion of it or something like that, we'll have it up on our YouTube tomorrow in the Masterclass playlist. And then we'll also send you an email tomorrow evening about this time with the giveaway link, or excuse me, not the giveaway link, with the YouTube link. That's the right link. With the YouTube link, and you can watch it or send it to a friend or do whatever you need. See, there's a couple people in the chat checking in. There is a chat box there just letting you know where you're tuning in from. If you do have a question you'd like us to address or answer, there is a Q&A box as well. That's the better spot for the questions. The chat, they just get missed. It's not set up for us to be able to answer them and keep track of them. So use that Q&A if you have any questions. And with that, looks like we got a pretty good number of people in here. So I will turn it over. Ben Bredigan is our kind of all things upland expert here. So he will be leading us through the class tonight. Ben, how are things in Minnesota? You are on mute.
I'll get the hang of it one day. Things are doing great. Pheasant season here is on the doorstep, and I can speak for a lot of bird country. It's looking pretty good. So I'm excited to be with you guys tonight. I would still be excited even if the bird numbers down, but bird numbers are looking great. So I'm even more excited, as I'm sure a lot of you are. So still a few people rolling in here, but we'll kind of get started, kick things off a little bit here. So obviously you guys know the topic of today is e-scouting for pheasants. We're going to kind of break down a system on how you go about finding them, how you kind of dig into the nitty gritty to find the best habitats, not waste time, and hopefully put more birds in your bag this season. So if you aren't familiar, I'm going to get out of here. You should be familiar with onX Hunt. I am on the web map right here on my computer. I find personally scouting on web map way easier. A lot of people just use the app, which is fine, but I highly recommend you going on your computer if you have one and getting in on web map because larger screen. This is how I enjoy looking at it. But if you're doing it on your app, that's great. The app has got full functionality as well. But we're just going to be, for the sake of demonstration, on the web map today. So we're going to kind of present this in a little bit of a story. So the story is, hey, I'm going on a trip. I want to go pheasant hunting. And I will caveat that if you live in pheasant country, if you're trying to find more birds around your area, this works equally as well. But we're going to kind of give you the full meal deal. If I was traveling from somewhere to go specifically target pheasants, this is how I would break it down from high to low, all the way from what area down to what individual property and where I should be walking on that property. So it is packed full of good information. Like Jack said, if you have to jump, it's going to be recorded as well. So you can go back, rewatch it and get some of the nuance. I have the tendency to move fast in here just because I want to cover as much as possible with you guys in our short hour. So if I'm going too fast in the chat, just send a chat and Jack will be like, tell me to rein it in and hold my horses. But we're going to move fast and we're going to cover some ground here. So starting off at a broad level here, I get the question like, where should I go pheasant hunting? Where should I even start? And that's a good question because at the end of the day, you have to go where pheasants are. That is the number one thing. You could go down to South Florida and say, oh man, I've got all this property to hunt. Guess what? There's no pheasants down there. So you're going to have a real bad time. Whereas you could go to, areas historically that might be good pheasant areas, but that particular year there could be drought, overgrazing, emergency haying and grazing, etc. And the bird numbers could be really down. So if I'm going on a trip, I oftentimes wait until like August, September even to plan a trip, I will block off a piece of time on my calendar to say, hey, I'm going on this trip, but I'll often wait and stay pretty flexible to where I'm going, in order to maximize my opportunity to be in the most amount of birds. And this is especially true if you're traveling. I saw some people from down south in here from, the Southwest that might want to come up. And this just maximizes your opportunity to run into birds. So the first thing, again, like we say, you have to go where the birds are. That is number one. So there's a number of tools I look to start figuring out how I would go about finding the birds. One of the good resources you have, if you can see my screen here, it is the Pheasants Forever Pheasant Hunting Forecast. Great resource here. They break down pretty much all the pheasant states and kind of break down what the reports are per state, even down to the region. We'll click on Iowa here. Look, for example, they're giving us pheasants. Wow, like, okay, Northwest 69% change there. I think this is the number of animals counted on a 30-mile route. So Northwest Iowa 32, West Central 26. Looking around here, it's like all across the state, honestly, it's looking really good this year. And that's, again, kind of a theme. But hey, looking at South Central right here, maybe I don't want to go to South Central Iowa. If you look at pheasant numbers, granted, they're up 67%, but that's only 9 birds counted per 30-mile versus I could go into the Northwest, which is 55, right? So use this as a resource to go and peruse around. Each state is different. They all don't have those cool charts. But like Minnesota, for example, this is how they do it. And there's really good information in terms of like write-ups in here, giving you regional reports. So really great resource to help point you in the right direction. Now going back to the map. So let's just say, for the sake of it, let's go to Minnesota. Like, we're going to say, hey, I want to go to Minnesota to go hunt pheasants. And again, this is just an example. This system that we're going to talk through today, you can really do this for any state, any bird species. Just the inputs might be slightly different. But in terms of pheasants, the nice thing about pheasants is I don't want to offend anyone, but they're pretty one-dimensional. And there is definitely some nuance, but you take, compared to like a rough grouse, they are going to be much more one-dimensional, easier to find than, say, a rough grouse, which can be wildly over the board. So the nice thing is this is generally broadly applicable, whether you are from the Southwest, whether you're from Oklahoma, Minnesota, you're going to Montana. This is all very usable. So for the sake of it, let's just say we're going to go start and hunt in Minnesota. So we're going to look back at here and say, all right, this brown right here is all really, the DNR is saying this is really good area. Not all years look like this either. Like, again, it's an exceptional year. So there's a lot of good, there's a lot of fair. This is a seminar that I had, I think, from Pheasant Fest a few years ago. And you can see this right here. Obviously probably it's still a good year, but not as good of a year as we're looking at right now. So, and the reason I kind of go through this and explain it is because you don't always have to go to like the hottest, the best area, because as we're all sitting here looking at this map on my screen, it's like, okay, let's go to the area that's in brown. Well, let's just say it's a worse year right here. I look in, there's obviously these hot spots, right? So other hunters are going to be thinking the same thing and want to go to these same areas to find birds. So I tell people, don't always go to that hottest spot. Maybe go off like, hey, let's go over up on the corner north of Lac-Parle here, or maybe closer to Blue Earth County. But we'll keep honing in here. So generally Minnesota, let's just say we're looking at the bottom, the southwest corner of the state. Well, let's start digging in here. I'll go on my web map, and what I will do is I will turn on my layers. So the layers I predominantly use, we're going to get kind of deeper in as we hone down, but to start off from the top level, what I'm going to turn on, I'm going to turn on my walk-in axis layer, which is going to give me all my voluntary public access, as well as when you turn on the state, it is going to default your government, your private lands, and then also possible access. And if you're not familiar with possible access, it's areas that are potentially open to hunting, but you definitely have to do your research, dig in to make sure they're open. Honestly, I see a lot more of that when you go into like northern Minnesota, the Northwoods, looking for grouse with timberland, paper company land, that kind of thing. Not as much in pheasant country, but that's when you see this kind of green checkered mark. Um, that's what that's going to be. But anyways, we've got those layers on, and that's kind of how I'm going to start. So the next thing I'm going to do is look at like kind of the area holistically, um, and think about pressure. So there's going to be some main towns that a lot of people are going to travel to, right? And there's going to be a lot of places that people live at that they're going to try to hunt like a within an hour or two drive from this area. One of those areas, probably it's going to be the Twin Cities, right? There are some million people in the Twin Cities. So if you're picking a destination, if you're trying to travel to Minnesota, well, I wouldn't probably, within a 100-mile radius around Minneapolis, I'd probably stay away from. There are great bird opportunities. I live within 100 miles of the Twin Cities, so I know there's good bird opportunities. But if I'm traveling, again, I'm trying to maximize my opportunities. So the nice thing, you look at Sioux Falls right here, predominantly in South Dakota. So that's going to skew a lot of the hunters out to South Dakota. So I don't have to worry about that. You look at towns like Marshall, which are a little bit bigger, Redwood Falls, Montevideo, Mankato. Again, you're trying to do the same thing. And I think I had it illustrated in here talking about pressure. This is illustrating North Dakota. So again, I'm kind of drawing those concentric circles around these areas and trying to really pick within the lines. When you get to those smaller cities, like those concentric circles get smaller, and my thought process and reasoning why is that a lot of those people in smaller communities, that a lot of the times they'll have access to private land. They don't get as hard as, say, again, talking about North Dakota here, that Fargo area, there's a lot of people that live in urban, very suburban areas that they might not have access to, friends that own land, et cetera. Where if you talk about a Williston or a Devil's Lake or a Dickinson, the odds are higher that they have more connections to hunt private land, thus reducing the pressure. So again, I'm kind of dancing around these areas a little bit. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start honing in and really trying to start picking an area to go hunt. Now, what I am looking for when I'm trying to hone in on an area is a diversity of land ownership. And what I mean by that is I'll zoom into a small area right here, and we can see we've got a WPA, we've got a WMA, wildlife management area, and these vary by states. It doesn't matter what they are, just know that they are different land ownerships. And then we've got a walk-in area, which obviously is owned by a private person that has through various programs, VPA HIP being one of them, has allowed hunting in return for a monetary compensation. So again, they manage these walk-in areas. Each individual person could manage these walk-in areas differently because it's different people's land. But so kind of going back to my point, I'm looking for that diversity of public land. I am not going to look at an area and say, like, for example, say these walk-in areas weren't here and it was all WMAs or it was all WPAs, because again, they are managed very similar. And let's just say, WPAs aren't always known for having the best habitat. A lot of the times it's dominated by cattails, and you're going to get a lot of smooth brome depending on where you are. So I'm looking for that diversity. So let's just say if I go to this, and you can tell in this picture, like this was hayed right here. And let's just say there's a drought and they start haying a bunch of stuff. I'm going to kind of be SOL because, all of those similar things might be impacted. But if I have an area, if I've got this diversity, I can say, well, WPAs are out, but great, I've got a WMA here. I've got a walk-in area here. And really, it's just going to open up those opportunities for you within a small area to be mobile, make a play, go to a different area, all within 10 minutes. So you're not having to drive an hour and a half because you put all your eggs in one basket. And that brings me to my next point is diversity is important, but also concentrations. I'm trying to find Minnesota's honestly pretty blessed with public land. But for example, let's just say, hey, this spot by Worthington here, this looks great. It's got great habitat. There's cattails, there's crops, there's all this fantastic stuff. Hyper focused. I'm going to this spot. Well, what happens if you show up opening day and there's a truck parked here? There's a truck parked here. There's another one over here. There's another one over there. And it's like, holy cow, I can't even hunt this. Well, let's start zooming out here. Your next, this is just the line distance tool. Well, there's one little one. There's one little spot to potentially go. That's, all right, that's 8 miles away. You know, I got one over here, 2 miles. The next one is going to be 20 miles away. So again, if that pressure starts adding up, you're going to run out of spots to go. Where if you find an area, again, that has a larger density, say something like this, where there's, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 13. I mean, there's endless areas right on this, in this area to potentially go hunt. So I'm not saying that these little hidey holes, because a lot of the times, yeah, like you're not going to get a lot of pressure on maybe some of these one-off small spots. But if you're planning to go on a trip to these areas, try to find that concentration. It's like if you bump out to South Dakota, for example. Okay, yeah, there's the state managed lands here. There's crop. There's these walk-in properties all over the place. Here's a WPA. So again, it's finding that concentration of land. And what I'm going to do when I find these areas is I'll just kind of put a waypoint kind of on near that area. So I'll click here and, I might just, I'll mark it in a different color. I'll just say, hey, green, I got to go check out this area later. And I'm just tooling around on the map and finding these hot spots, these areas of higher concentration. And I'm just going to go ahead and drop a color coded waypoint. We'll talk about using icons and using colors later, but yeah, you're just going to kind of tool around and look for these areas. And I'll pan just like this on the map. Oh, like, oh yeah, here's a concentration over here. I'm going to put a waypoint here. And again, you're just compiling those areas. And then once I have, 5 or 6 of those areas, and again, I'm referencing that against some of these reports, and all those are look to be in pretty good areas. So like it's checked out there, somebody of authority, the DNR, Pheasants Forever, is saying like, yeah, the bird numbers here are looking good. So kind of what I'm going to do next after I've identified a handful of those areas with concentrations of public land and with diversities of public land, I'm going to start honing in and looking at individual properties and kind of assessing them for the quality, what I'm looking for. So let me just make sure I didn't miss anything here. So we are in good shape. So as I'm starting to look down here and start assessing why this land looks good, in my opinion, it brings up probably one of the most important things that you need to be good at or need to learn to be good at in order to e-scout, in order to be effective at it. The number one thing I tell people is they need to be able to analyze what satellite imagery looks like and be able to interpret what that looks like on the ground. So it's like I can look at here and I can say, okay, these are planted pines. There's some deciduous trees around here. We've got, thick cattails, thinner cattails, a grass strip running through here. Obviously, this is some ag here. Well, this is some shrubbery with grass growing up in between that. That's what I mean is like I can look at that and almost instantly tell what that is going to be from the air. And that's how I can quickly go through spots and say, okay, this is good, this is not good, this is good, this isn't. And that is a muscle that you have to flex in order to learn how to do it. And a few tips on how to do that. So one thing is like, I'm looking at a major roadway here. What I'm going to do is just to kind of to be able to better understand that is I'm going to click on an area on a major roadway on onX. I'll go copy those coordinates, and I will go into our friend Google Maps, paste that, and it's going to bring me to that same spot on the roadway. If you look in the bottom right corner here, there's this little orange guy hanging here. And that's like, if you ever seen, it's called Google Street View. If you ever see the cars that drive around with all the cameras on it that are crazy, that's what they're doing. So with Google Street View, I can grab this and it's going to highlight all the areas that they have mapped that I can go look at. Well, that is not what I wanted to look at. Lost our spot. So anyway, so what I do is like, I am looking at satellite imagery here, and let's just say like, oh, I'm really interested in what this is right here. Like, I think this is like cattails. This might be grass. Anyways, like if you're traveling to a new area and you have no understanding, this is a great way to gain that perspective. So I'm gonna grab this little orange guy. I'm gonna drop it on it, and voila, it is gonna show me a picture. It might not be the right time of year, but it's going to show me what this is. So now, this is a driveway into the property. Well, let's compare and contrast a little bit. Let's go. Let's go look at. We'll look at onX here and say, okay, I roughly drop that. We can see this driveway going into the property, and I'm gonna look at here. Well, this looks different here. Let's go back and look. What is that? Well, see this patch of brush back here? This right here is likely this stuff right here. So again, you're kind of connecting those dots in your head, and you can kind of do this everywhere. And if you don't know what good habitat looks like, we'll kind of break down what good habitat looks like. But the other thing I tell people to do is go on YouTube. If you want to go and hunt Minnesota pheasants, another way to get a good beat on what good habitat looks like is go in and Google the state you're hunting and say pheasant hunting. So like I pulled up my home screen when I was getting prepared for this, and Wild Upland Callie's show popped up. And what I'll do is I'll just sit here and watching, and obviously it's going to be entertaining, but what I'm really looking at is I'm looking at what the habitat looks like. So I'm painting that picture in my head of what good habitat looks like. Where are they finding birds? Okay, we've got looks like a cut bean field over here. We've got cattails. We've got a little strip of grass, dried up slough bed. Okay, those are good indicators, right? Now when I'm going to find spots, okay, at least I know what they look like and I can start piecing those together. So this is a random spot I picked. I don't know if it's good. I've never been there. Don't mean to hotspot it, but just to illustrate this, this is what I found, and it kind of told me why. I'll explain why I found it to be a good area. So the first thing here is I'm looking for a diversity of habitat, and what I mean by that is pheasants, they need different things different times of year. They need thicker grass, thinner grass. They need crops. They need access to gravel, grit for their crops. They during the winter they're going to need trees and shelter more so to make it through the winter. So this property is a good example of something that has everything. And going back to my comment about being able to interpret satellite imagery versus what's on the ground, I'll kind of give you a crash course right here. So the darker the shades here, the darker the shades of green, the thicker the cover is going to be. The lighter the shades are, the thinner the cover. You can see like obviously like this is a cattail marsh. You can see the water here. Look at how dark that gets, the thinner it gets versus you get out to the edge and granted it's getting a little bit more thin. You look at some of these spots around here, that's lighter, that's thinner. Topography is going to dictate a lot of that. So right now I'm using my hybrid base map, and that is going to show you contour lines as well as satellite imagery. It's a blend of the two. So it's like, I'm guessing right here, just this is going to be a hilltop. It's got lighter grass and I'm seeing a contour line. So sure enough, I go into 3D mode and that is going to be hilltop, which a lot of the times that is why it's going to be thinner grass, is um, because you have less moisture, the soil could potentially erode and slide down. So you're going to have a lighter grass growth there. But anyways, yeah, so I've got a mosaic here. I've got all of this thicker cover, likely cattails. I've got grass strips running through there. I've got trees here, and if you watch my grow scouting one, the reason I know that these are bigger trees is I can go and measure the canopies. I'll go use my line distance tool, and I'll measure that canopy. That canopy is 9 yards wide, so that's going to be a bigger tree where I can tell that this is more shrubby stuff because it all kind of blends together. And a lot of the times that's what they're doing. They're when they're building shelter belts, it's progressive. It's different size trees, bushes, different densities to be able to control that snow a little bit better. So, but again, this has got that diversity. It's got crops bordering it here. And when I'm diving down and looking at these properties, a really cool feature we have is our crop data layer here, which is if you go to trees, crops, and soil in your layers, you can click on this. And within that, there's a bunch of cool stuff, great capabilities, but we're really interested in crops. And specifically, you can turn them all on and it's going to look like, the mat kind of vomited here. So I can turn corn, soybeans, alfalfa, wheat, winter wheat, blah, 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 all this stuff on. In this area, it is predominantly dominated by corn and soybeans. And a lot of those times, they are going to be on a rotation. They're going to be corn, soybeans, soybeans, corn, or corn, soybeans, one of the two. So a lot of the times, this is not a tried and true rule. It really depends on your area. But a lot of the times they're going to rotate corn for some sort of legume because corn is definitely rougher on the soil. So like in this area, understanding the historical crop rotation, odds are that this is not going to be in corn. So I'm going to back up for a second. Sorry. This is showing last year's data. So this is what they planted in 2024. This is when the USDA releases the data. They don't release it until the following year just for like market manipulation purposes. So this is last year. So again, with that basic understanding of crop rotation, is historical rotation regimes, you can kind of understand what it's going to be. So looking at this property for 2025, well, this was corn last year, so odds it's going to be soybeans. This is interesting. These are a lot of the states they plant. They're going to plant food plots depending on your state where you are. They'll plant food plots. So, okay, now I know that the state is actively planting this. I can kind of tell from here, right? You can see the striations, the rows. So obviously they're putting in crops for the benefit of wildlife. Hey, this side over here likely going to be corn this year. We go kind of hop over to another area. You can kind of see this area is dominated by corn and beans. Well, okay. This area, honestly, not as interesting to me. Don't get me wrong, you can definitely find pheasants here. 100% chance you will find a pheasant in this spot, but it is not quite as interesting. If you compare and contrast, yeah, sure, there are some interesting features here, right? There's a patch of, looks like some shrubby stuff, some thicker grass. You see this thinner stuff right here, which is that lighter grass. Shrubbery kind of mixed around in here. But if you look at this one holistically, you've got this giant slough right here. And again, I'm going to use my line distance tool just to get a frame of reference. To walk across the slough is 400 yards nearly. That's a big slough. So we'll talk into, we're going to keep honing down, but um, when you talk about these slough areas, one of the things, if it's going to be you, if it's going to be you and a buddy, like this is not a good spot to walk. Like this is massive. Those pheasants are just going to run around you. Sure, you could take a stab at it, get a few, not going to be as effective. But anyways, yeah, so this doesn't look as good. There's less of that diversity, there's less of those inputs, where again, if we're going to go back to here, man, like look at all this. Like if you just take a step back and look with your eye, look at all the different stuff going on here. So what I'm going to do then is, okay, this looks good to me. What I'll do is I will put a waypoint on it like I did, and I will kind of come back to it. And what I'm going to do is keep looking around that area and marking a dozen, 15, 20 different pieces of public land that look good. Because like I said before, if you get to an area and there's a truck parked there, so what? I can go 5 miles down the road and find enough and go to one of my other spots that looks good. So I'll just kind of walk through with you a little bit here on kind of how I would break down an area. So it's too bad this is private because this looks really nice. I bet this is just a pheasant haven right here. And so like, for example, why I was just going to leave this one, like this one looks pretty good. I bet this is, you've got some cattails here. This is going to be some really thick grass. Actually, you know what? I would potentially walk this one as I really hone in on it. The reason I'm saying it's thicker grass is if I find thinner grass, kind of like this right here, this thinner stuff. Why I'm saying I think this is a little thicker grass is it almost looks fuzzy. You get that fuzzy look to it. You could, it's hard to describe it. Like just take a look at this. This is super fuzzy looking. You've got like that texture, I guess would be a better term. Where if you find thinner grass, it doesn't have as much of that texture. So if you compare here versus here, this is a lot more texture. This is also going to be thicker right here. So I might say, hey, this is actually worth a walk. So I'm going to drop a waypoint here. My color for scouting is yellow. I would not recommend use yellow. I would recommend using red for scouting. So I would put like actually I would put a pheasant icon on this one right here and just say, hey, this is a property I want to dig into. It looks good. I'm going to come back to this later. And again, I'm going to keep tooling around. We'll just keep analyzing spots. The other good thing about this one, I forgot, like, okay, we've got a nice shelter belt or a, tree row down the edge. And, again, trees bring potential of avian predators, but at the end of the day, pheasants love that safety, that cover of that bushier stuff. So that's another one. Shelter belts are going to be a great area to look for. But why I'm interested in this one, I've got this drainage that runs through here that's going to have thicker grass. And I'm interested to see. So one cool feature that we just released is called our light out feature. And what this is going to do is this is going to give high definition topography. And it's really interesting. So, and Jack, this is elite feature, right? Or no?
That's a good question. I believe it is.
Okay. So for your elite members, if you're not, be sure to upgrade. So this is really telling right here. So I'm going to switch it into 3D to give you a better perspective here. Remember that drainage ditch we were talking that's running along this blue line? Well, I'm seeing some relief here. This shading is telling me that there is something there. So I'm going to use this 3D exaggeration to kind of help paint that picture a little bit better. So this is essentially enhancing. Whoa, come back here. So this is going to enhance that 3D view. And I about guarantee I can see, a ditch running through here. Yeah, you can kind of see this is that hillside. And again, this is really subtle. And that's the beauty of it. So I can kind of see this, the hills, the depressions. And when thinking about this, remember, water is going to run off the hill and pool somewhere. That is generally where you're going to get some of that, some of that better growth. So, all right, well, this again, this looks good. I'm going to flip it back into hybrid. I'm going to come off of 3D here, and I'm going to mark that spot. And I'm going to show you just another spot. We're going to go somewhere else just to give you a different look. Minnesota looks a lot different than, say, a Western South Dakota. Sure, we'll go here. This is the Fort Pierre National Grasslands here. So I'm going around here, and this is all state game and fish land. It's going to look different than Minnesota. Again, I want to just give you that little bit different look. As I zoom in here, okay, this doesn't look as interesting. There's a lot of trees. Sure, there's crops here, but it's not looking wildly interesting. Okay, here I've got some shelter belts that are, if I hover over this, it's going to show soybeans. There's some grass on top. Okay, here's some more shelter belts here. That's looking pretty interesting. The next question is like, okay, how do I get to this? A lot of this core stuff might be hard to access. You might have to park over here and walk all the way around to it, which again could be a good thing because of pressure, but you have to be able to get to it. So it's like I look at here, okay, sweet. There's a soybean field. This is looking really good. Okay, here we're gonna dig in here. So we've got shelter belts, grade A. Look at the change in grass. I've got those lighter colors, those darker colors. As I pan over here, oh, what am I seeing here? I'm seeing that fuzzy texture. And that again, those colors, like there's different bushes, there's different types of grass here. Okay, this is an area I'm gonna mark. And so really, like, people are commenting like, hey, do different states for me. Really, this doesn't change. I could go, it's the same concept. I could go over to, Washington and do the same thing if I turned on Washington public private. I'm gonna go see if they have an access program, private land opportunities. I mean, this is Moses Lake. It's a very popular area for pheasants. But I can go and look at the same thing. Okay, well, here's a piece of walk-in area. I'm looking, okay, the drainage ditches sometimes have cover around them. This one doesn't. This one has, I don't know, 3 yards. So like that's not worth going to. It's surrounded by crops. So it's like, oh, let's keep picking around. I don't even know if another canal here looks pretty sparse. Where if okay, let's go up to here. Okay. Well, what am I seeing here? Again, this is where I would tell you why it's so important to be able to understand aerial imagery versus what's on the ground. Like I look at this and I've never hunted this area. I can tell this is likely sagebrush over here. Honestly, this is probably with this body of water, probably cattails, but it looks like it's almost been burnt. You can see, I bet it has been burnt in this picture. Yeah, you can see like how they kept these like telephone poles. They must have put fire breaks around them. So like, okay. But yeah, like again, that diversity, you've got sagebrush, you've got this transition, you've got this, I'm guessing this is some sort of waterway, this line here. The only thing that this doesn't maybe have is crops, and that's not always a prerequisite. It just helps get you in the right area. So again, I could replicate this across the board. It doesn't, a lot of the things hold very true for pheasants. Again, I let's do one like for example in Montana here. Well, we'll just start along the river. Okay, like this, there you could probably find pheasants, but again, there's a lot of trees. Doesn't look super pheasanty to me. Same thing here, just kind of keep cruising down the line. I don't know, I might not have walk-in stuff on in Montana, which might make it hard. But anyways, okay, so this abuts a field right here. Look at this. I've got a shelter belt. I've got sagebrush. I've got this, again, that patchwork of cover of thicker grass, thinner grass. Like it doesn't always matter what it is. It's just like that diversity within a small area, and you've got crop fields right here. So I digress. So again, I just want to show that it is applicable in different areas. So, all right, let me check time. Okay, I want to save some time for questions for sure, but I'm going to turn off this soybean corn because it hurts my eyes to look at. So I'll shut that off. And again, I'm going to go and pick out these. I'm going to go and pick out these areas. And I'm going to waypoint them. I'm going to, and in particular, I'm going to waypoint areas that I want to make sure I hit, because when I'm in the field, things look different. You're in a hurry. You want to cover ground. You might get waylaid and go, oh, I'm a raccoon and there's a shiny object and I want to go check it out over there. And then all of a sudden you get off the program. But from here, I can like sit in the comfort of my home and say, all right, I'm going to put together a game plan for this property. So what I do is, okay, when I mark this generically, I said, hey, I want to come back and look at it. From there, I'm going to hone in on this. And actually, I'm going to use a different property just to highlight this a little bit better. So we're going to go back to this one. All right, well, I can see, I can access this property from right here. So I'm going to put I use red for like my generics, or I'm going to do it how I should have done it when I did it before. I'm going to put a yellow waypoint. So it's like, okay, when I'm going to that spot on my app, I can go click on this. And the app, if you haven't used it, we've got elite turn-by-turn navigation. So I can tap on that waypoint, hit go to waypoint, and it'll navigate you in the app. If you have CarPlay, it'll show that navigation on CarPlay. If you don't have it, you can click on Google Maps or Apple Maps, and it will take you out of the app and navigate you to that spot. So I'm going to say, okay, I've got to turn here to go. I've got to turn in here to go to this spot. Looks like this is what they designate a parking area. So, okay, I'm going to plan on parking at this spot when I'm here. I'm going to color code it yellow. And from there, I'm going to start planning my hunt. So, honestly, I look at this, I'm going to back up. Like, I am driving actually. So they have 2 parking spots. I might retract my statement and say, hey, I'm going to park right here, because if I parked way down over here, I just walked past some really good, or I just drove past some really good looking stuff. I didn't even notice that here, that this is a food plot on the back side here. So you've got like a trifecta. You've got a shelter belt, you've got crops, you've got grass on this side. So I'm not going to drive past that. This is money. So I'm going to put a waypoint here just so I remember, like, okay, this is a food plot, and I'm going to go down. I'm going to pick my icon. It's a food plot icon, and I'm going to color coordinate it. So this is, again, when I'm sitting here, I know that I haven't been to this. I've just scouted this. And so here I look and it's like, okay, there's a food plot here. And I won't do this all the time. Actually, I take that back. What I'm going to start doing is just I'll mark spots. So I've got to get over this drainage ditch, so I can't just like probably bucket across here unless it's frozen. The other thing is, like, looking at here, I might come across this, hit this edge. Again, you're always looking for edges of fields, edges of like these transition covers, or yeah, the transitions are super important. So many critters are edges. They love that. So, but the other thing is, I alluded to it before. It's like, if you're one hunter and a dog, or 2 hunters and a dog, this is going to be hard to cover. Because again, like, if you're one guy walking through here, those birds could just squirt off into here. There's nothing to stop them, right? They can run around you. Where if you look at here, well, odds are, if I'm walking the shelter belt, sure, like this might be a little wide for one person to cover, but it's doable. line distance tool. This is 50 yards across. So certainly doable with the dog. One guy and a dog. This would set up perfectly for honestly probably 2 people, 3 people. But again, if I walk this, a lot of those birds, they'll get to this end, they'll hang up, they'll run out to here, and there's a road blocking it here. So a lot of the times they're going to kind of hang up on this edge here. If you pheasant hunted before, that's what happens. You get to the end of the cover, and those birds are going to hold. They're going to get up. Where again, this, sure, they might hold, but if you're hunting a wily rooster, a lot of times they're going to run. So I'm going to say, hey, I'm going to walk this out here. Well, I'm going to cross right here. And there's a lot of applicable waypoints here. I thought there was, okay, there's a crossing waypoint. I'm going to go change my color to yellow. Say, okay, I'm going to cross here. Okay, what are some other good looking spots? This is interesting. It's a little patch of cover in between, a patch of woody cover, maybe willows, something like that. Marsh, grass, a deeper, that deeper color, that darker green color. And then I've got crops right here. That's a worthwhile spot for sure to hit. I'm gonna go drop a waypoint here. And I'm gonna put a pheasant icon. And say, all right, that's a spot to check out. This is interesting again. Crops, grass, darker grass, crops, food or woody cover. Man, this is making our life easy. There's a ton of objectives to hit that. So again, I'm going to work my way around this property. You get to this area and say, hey, again, I'm going to take this edge. I've got woody cover, the grass, the edge of the cattails. I might work that out. Again, this is looking less interesting because like this spot right here, I've got this thick piece of grass here. My dog could go off to. So I might honestly, when I get to here, I might cut up here and go loop around and say, hey, I want to end up at the tip of this point. And I want to work this back down here and then work my way back out. And I've gone as far as like, if you got the time, you want to do it using this line distance tool, as I will actually go out and plan my hunt and say, hey, this is what I want to walk. And then when I get in the field, I can adjust accordingly, or I could say, hey, man, my homework is great. This is how I'm going to execute in the field. And it helps you prevent spinning out, not knowing what to do in the field. And it's been successful for me. So like, I will literally go out and plan these walks sometimes, say, okay, I'm going to cut through here. This is a bit of a barren zone. And I'm going to work my way back down through this, hit this edge. Again, I'm going to have to rehunt some of this stuff, but honestly, it's just a small amount. Get to here. Probably work along this food plot. I don't know. There might be some grass on the edge, but I might just take this edge to get down to this stuff. Zigzag my way through this thing a little bit. Again, hitting this edge. If this is just me, I might zigzag my way along this because it's kind of stuck in between these things. Potentially work my way up, back down to the truck. And also that's going to give you a good idea of what you're covering. So that's a 3-mile walk. That's a pretty good walk depending on how thick the cover is. And how much you can realistically cover in a day. So that's just an example of kind of how I would break down a property in a walk. And I might do this for 3-4 properties. So let me look through here. So like, for example, this is going to planning your hunt type things. If I was going to an area, this is what my map might look like for for how a hunt went down and how much planning I go into hunting an area. The other thing I alluded to before was marking, color coding spots. So this is mine. I've kind of rethought this a little bit after I've gone through it, but what I would do is I would when you're e-scouting, you're on the computer, you've never been there before. What I do is I go click and I add the icon. So like, okay, I added like these are pheasant spots, and then I will turn them a certain color. It doesn't matter what it is. I would honestly leave them at red because at the end of the day, I have way more e-scouted spots than I actually do hunted spots. So by using red, that's what it defaults to. And and so it just makes it easy. I can go fast. And then once I hunt it, I will turn it a different color. I will turn it blue. So then I know I've been there before. If a spot looks good on a map, like I say, if I go to this spot and say, oh my gosh, this spot looks so good, a lot of the times what I'll turn it to is white. And in my mind, like the connection is white hot. So, okay, I know now when I've got 50 waypoints in this area, white is good. Now, when I get out in the field, if you haven't used it, I always turn on my tracker. It's in the bottom right-hand corner of your app. So when you go out, you can walk it and it will show you kind of how you covered that area. If I walk it, I don't find birds. It doesn't look like good habitat. A lot of the times what I will do is I will turn that to black. So it will oftentimes look like this. So I know if I go back to that area, I've been tricked before where I've got there and I was like, damn it, I have walked this spot before. And I deleted my route or my waypoints because it didn't look good. So it's just as important to leave, tell yourself like, hey, this was not a good spot. This was not white hot, Ben. This was black. This was bad. So I'll leave that black. So that's kind of like my color coordination of this, kind of how I approach it. We've only got I want to keep this somewhat timely here. So I see that there are some questions in the chat here. And Jack, if you want to tee a few up, if you've got a few that are coming through, I'd love to see it.
Yeah, the first one, can you show folks again how to get to the crop layers? There's been a few questions folks not seeing it on their side.
Yeah, for sure. So again, this is going to look different on your app. And if you're on your app, it's the bottom left, kind of the bottom left corner. You can click on map layers and you're going to scroll down. It is not by state. It will be found in this tree, crops, and soil folder. Click on that. It's going to be called US crop distribution. If you only want to see a certain crop, like for example, if you are hunting in South Dakota and you want to hunt Sharpies, I might turn on alfalfa. But in this case, a lot of the times I am looking for, corn is king for pheasants. So a lot of the times I am looking corn. Sorghum is another one. Millet's a good one. Soybeans would probably be down the list, as would wheat. Depending where you are, it's still important. But that's what I would turn on a lot of the cases. The other thing to think about is like, hey, we're gonna do the map vomit here and turn on all the colors. This is also going to give you a good indication of like what the crops are in that area as you're trying to better understand that area you might want to go to. We'll just kind of bomb out, I don't know, somewhere out in Montana here. It'll give you a better indication, or we'll go to North Dakota. It'll give you a better indication of what's out there. So North Dakota, I am looking at a lot of wheat, a lot of canola, some corn. So if I'm trying to find those areas of corn by turning those all on, it's just, again, it's kind of giving me that better picture of what I'm looking at on the landscape. Let's see here. What else do we have?
There's a question here on, and we're talking mostly scouting here tonight, but if you didn't have a dog, how
Yeah,
does that, I'm sure it's going to change the cover you're going to hunt and areas you might target. What might that look like?
that is a fantastic question. It is something I kind of alluded to, but I failed to mention it a bit. Um, so if I'm hunting with a dog, this is even more important. Again, I showed you that line distance across and you guys, hopefully you can see my screen here on this PowerPoint here, but this is 500 yards across. If you were hunting without a dog or by yourself with a dog, again, those pheasants are just going to run around you. This is almost impossible. So it's important when you're hunting with a dog, even more important when you're hunting without a dog, is to put yourself in those key areas, like those high percentage spots. So it's all about pinning those birds. So if I am one hunter walking through this is, I don't know if that this is a, I don't know if that says 187 yards. This is 200 yards. Yeah. This might be even a little too wide for you as one person to hunt, but what I would do is really narrow in and try to find those little slivers, those little hidey holes, those pieces of cover that are tiny that that you will actually walk up a pheasant. And you don't have the luxury, obviously, of hunting with the dog that can go find them for you. So I'm going to try to find a quick example of one of those like one of those areas that might be like those little hidey holes, those little thin pieces. And we're talking like pieces of cover that are like sub 30 yards where by you walking through it, you are likely to scare up a pheasant. Here, this is a good example. These shelter belts. Um, we've got crops, we've got that kind of shrubby shelter belt. What I might do is plan my hunt. So I'm walking along this edge, right in between this crop. You can see there's a little bit of grass. I'm walking down this edge right here, and I'm walking in those very high percentage spots. Um, and then when like in terms of like tactics, um, weave. Like I've got some big running dogs that they might be 50, 60, 100, well, not 50, 60, might be 200 yards away. And I'm pretty much hunting for myself at that point. So what I'm going to do is if, hey, they're out screwing around over here, I'm going to be zigzagging. All of a sudden I'll stop. And when you stop, like the prey instinct is like, oh gosh, they see me or they know I'm here. And then a lot of the times they'll get jumpy and they will fly away. So it's like I'm zigzagging, covering that ground, stopping for a little bit, and just being meticulous. I'm not walking too fast, or if I am, a lot of the times I will walk really fast, but it's like this. It's zigzag, zigzag, zigzag. Just because I have a hard time walking slow. But those are some of the tips for hunting without a dog that again it's just so critical to put yourself in those really good pieces of cover.
Yeah, I know. I think of a spot I've hunted in South Dakota where we are kind of along a small lake and there was a road that went along it. And that was a nice kind of barrier on either side. You could walk in
Mm-hmm.
between the two. They didn't want to fly out over that, 50-acre lake or whatever it was. And then that road was kind of enough to get them to stop and you could walk that little patch. Obviously, that's a pretty specific
Yeah,
situation, but I've had some luck using water to kind of pin birds or stop them
that's
too.
definitely that's a really good point, Jack. Here's another spot that could be an option, right? It's those high percentage areas. Like this. This is a little thick, maybe, but yeah, again, using those edges to pin birds. Like for example, this edge right here is going to be a lot thicker than some of this. Again, lighter grass, darker grass. So I might walk this edge all the way around this slough. So that would be my recommendations for hunting without a dog.
hmm Kyle asked, when is it okay to hunt an area where there's already somebody parked there? Like, is there it's a big WMA. Do you have like a rule of thumb where, man, this is big enough that we can kind of go our separate ways, or, do you
Yeah,
kind of primarily just move on?
that's a really good question. Yeah, so I'm gonna try to find a piece like to. Yeah, it certainly matters size. Like if you have a giant piece like say this, which is, I mean, this half is 1,000 acres, this half is this is 800, 700 acres. Like there is a ton of ground to hunt. This could support multiple groups. But kind of what I don't do is, so for example, let's just say like you get to this corner and somebody is walking up over in this quadrant over here. I'm not going to go and mess with them. I might go drive down this road here and go park down this road and hunt a different piece. But what I like to tell people is like, think about it in your head. So if you were hunting, if you were parked right here and all of a sudden a guy parks right down here, like, would you be mad? Would that make you mad if somebody went and did that? Because again, this is a like, if they're parked here and they're hunting this area, like, I don't think this is 50 acres. So like you could cover this in a pretty short amount of time. And likely what they're going to do is based on where they're parked, likely they're going to come down in here and hunt this piece. So just use common sense and that, and if even better, if you can catch them, if they're at the truck or you're hunting before daybreak, like just say, hey, what's your plan? I don't want to interfere. You got here first. That's always the rule of thumb. Like if they got there first, that's theirs. I'll go drive somewhere else. But hey, what's your plan? What are you planning on hunting over here on this side? Would it be cool if I went down and hunted this area? And just by like disarming people like that, that's a good way to go about it. So
Yeah, and that I think it highlights what you talked about earlier, having multiple options. If you're depends where you live and where you are, of course, that area of Minnesota, there's a lot of different WMAs, WPAs. Where I am in Montana, we're kind of blessed, but I've had many times where it's, man, I would be annoyed if somebody parked there and came in after me. I'm gonna drive 10 minutes down the road and try to hit one of those other spots. It might not have been my first choice for the day, but you either got to get up earlier or pivot to another spot. I like that.
yeah, and another thing, this is just something I thought of. I was looking through some of the questions that you guys sent in before, but another good way is to this is way off subject from hunting pressure, but something I failed to mention. If you like, a lot of the times pheasant seasons, depending on the state, like Kansas opens like time of day, I guess I should say, like Minnesota is 9 a.m., South Dakota is 10 a.m., Kansas is sunrise or half hour before, Montana's half hour before. If you're hunting some of these states that don't have like sunrise, half hour before sunrise opening times, get up at half hour before sunrise and start driving these roads around areas that you're going to hunt. It is a wealth of knowledge. Watch, like they're going to sit out, go to the roads, start picking gravel, and then they're going to a lot of the times fly back to where they're going to be. Man, that is just invaluable. You've watched where all those birds want to be and you can go target those spots. Same thing in the evening. um, Watch what those birds are doing. They're gonna the kind of the diurnal or the daily movements of a pheasant is they are going to start out in the morning. They are going to be in your roosting area, grasslands. Then they will go out in the morning. They will go out to feed. A lot of the times it's going to be a crop field. If there's not crops in that area, throws off that dynamic a little bit. Then they're going to go fly back into cover, into loafing cover. When it gets hot out in the middle of the day, they're going to be looking for, maybe some overhead cover, some thicker areas they can get out of the sun. Um, and then in the evening, they're going to go back out to feed and then back to cover. A lot of the times when they're coming back into cover, it's going to be either at sunset or after sunset. So that's kind of the movements. And again, when you're out there, you can go and proof your spots before you actually hunt to ensure that you are maximizing it.
There's a question here, and I know this is probably going to be a matter of personal preference, but William asked, in your opinion, on public land, is it better in early season when one competes with higher numbers of hunters, or late season when hunter density is lower, but birds are fewer and more educated?
That is a great question. And either way you look at it, it's a double-edged sword, and I wrestle with it. It's by going out there early and being one of the first ones out there, you are definitely competing with people, but also you are getting a lot of young of the year birds who have not been educated. So it is certainly worth going out early on because you're getting some of the dumbest birds that hold nicely for dogs, and there are not going to be any more birds on the landscape than on opening day. So that is the benefit of going out early. As you get, let's just say later in the season, you're not going to see very many people. Like if you're talking January in South Dakota, like it is almost dead. Um, so you're not competing. The other nice thing about hunting later season is that those birds are going to congregate into tighter groups. They're going to be very driven by thermal cover and food. So the suitable habitat, when it snows, it knocks down grass. It's going to push those birds into cattails and then by woody cover and food sources. So you've got that option. So that's a hard question. Personal preference. Yeah, I can't say I like hunting either way. I would probably go it earlier. I don't like later in the year. It's going to push a lot of birds to cattails, and I just don't enjoy walking cattails that much. So I would prefer to go earlier, maybe. So it's really just personal preference. It's kind of silver lining. There's a silver lining to either one of them.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you on that. I have not had luck much in December. Granted, I live in western Montana, which is not a hotbed of pheasant hunting. We do have some spots. But you do kind of, it's all what you're looking to get out of the hunt. And I've had some walks where it's a December day and it's cold, but it's just me and the dog. And we might not put up a lot of birds, but if you get a late season rooster, that's a trophy for sure.
Yeah, 100%.
All right. Well, we are a bit over time, so I think Ben, we can end it here for the evening.
Yeah.
Want to thank everybody for joining us. We Montana, we open a week from Saturday, so I'm starting to get that itch. I think a lot of other states will open the weekend after that, and we're getting to be about that time. So, folks, make sure you're you know, getting out there practicing with the shotgun and dogs are in shape and getting your boots broke in and all that good stuff. So it's about to be one of the best times of the year. And I do want to mention there was a couple questions on how to watch previous master classes. I did drop the link in the chat. So if you want to go watch, Ben mentioned his rough grouse, master class we did earlier this year. That's about to get really good as the leaves are falling off in the upper Midwest and the Northeast. You can go to the onX Hunt YouTube channel, click on playlists. There's a masterclass playlist. That's where you can watch our whole back catalog. And this one will be on there tomorrow morning. We'll also email everyone the link to it. So with that, Ben, I'll give you the final word.
Yeah, guys and gals out there, just remember this is going to be one of the better pheasant years out there across the range. If you've never done it before, the best thing you can do is go out and just try it. Obviously, you've got onX. You can stay safe. You can stay legal. I like to think about it. What is the worst thing that's going to happen? You take a beautiful walk with your dog. You might not shoot birds, but every time you do it, you're going to be learning a little bit more and more. So um, this is a great blueprint to help you get closer to success. So just go out, do it, keep learning, and hopefully everyone has a safe and successful season.
Awesome. Well said. Thanks again, everybody. Have a good evening.